The snow had not yet fallen, but the air carried that sharp holiday bite that made a man feel small under a wide sky. Frost clung to the grass like a warning, and every breath rose white before fading into the quiet. Colter Rains moved slow through the cottonwoods, his boots careful, his rifle held low. He had tracked deer since boyhood, but this hunt felt different. It was meant to be simple, a clean trail, meat for winter, something steady to mark the season. The land, though, had its own plans, and it had been whispering to him since dawn. The tracks were fresh. Hooves pressed deep where the earth was soft, then scattered where the ground turned hard and rocky. Colter followed with the patience of a man who knew the desert could punish haste. He read the broken twigs, the scuffed stones, the faint dark drops that should not have been there. Blood. Not much, but enough to tighten his jaw. A wounded deer could run for miles before dropping, and the sun was already leaning west. He pushed on, deeper than he planned, past a low ridge where the wind cut colder. That was when he heard it. Not a deer, not coyote or hawk. A sound too quiet for pain, yet heavy with it, carried by the wind like a plea that did not know how to be spoken. Colter froze. The desert went still around him, as if waiting to see what kind of man he would be. He followed the sound to a stand of juniper and found her there, half hidden by roots and stone. She lay against the earth as if the land itself had tried to hold her. Dark hair spilled across her shoulders, tangled with dust and dried leaves. Her dress was torn, stained near the side where her hand pressed tight. Blood had soaked into the cloth, darker now, stiff with cold. Her eyes were open, sharp despite the pain, watching him as a cornered animal watches a hunter. Colter lowered his rifle at once and stepped back a pace, raising his empty hand. He had seen fear before, in men and beasts, and he knew what it could drive someone to do. She did not speak. Her breathing was shallow, careful, each breath measured like it cost her something precious. "I am not here to harm you," he said, his voice rough from the cold and from disuse. Words felt clumsy in a moment like this. "I was tracking deer. Heard you." Her eyes did not leave him, were dark, steady, full of something older than fear. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and cracked, yet strong enough to cut through the quiet. "Go slow." The words were simple, but the way she said them made Colter pause again. He nodded, moving only when she watched his hands. He knelt a few steps away, close enough to see the wound better. The cut at her side was deep, torn by something sharp. He did not ask what had happened. He could see enough to know she would not last long in the cold. "My name is Colter Rains," he said, offering it like a bridge. "I have a ranch not far from here. I can help you if you let me." She studied his face, as if weighing every line, every breath. At last, she gave a small nod. "Ayana," she said. The name sounded like the wind through dry grass. "I cannot walk." Colter swallowed. He had carried calves and sacks of grain, even wounded men once. But this was different. He slipped off his coat and held it out, slow, just as she asked. She watched him wrap it around her shoulders, her jaw tightening as the fabric brushed the wound. He apologized under his breath, though he did not know why. Maybe it was because the world had already taken too much from her. Lifting her was careful work. She was lighter than she looked, all sharp angles and strength worn thin by pain. When he stood, her hand gripped his shirt hard, and he felt the tremor in her fingers. She leaned her head against his shoulder, breath warm against his neck. He adjusted his hold, steadying them both, and turned back toward the trail he knew would lead home. The walk felt longer than it ever had. A word. Every step jarred her, and each time she whispered the same words against his ear. "Go slow." He obeyed, even when his legs burned and the cold bit deeper. The sky darkened, turning the color of iron. By the time the ranch came into view, smoke was rising from the chimney like a promise. Colter's home was a plain place, built for work, not comfort. Still, it was warm, and warmth was everything. He laid her on the bed near the fire and fetched water, clean cloth, the small tin of supplies he kept for accidents. She watched him with the same sharp focus, her pain never letting her fully rest. "You should not help me," she said as he cleaned the wound. "It can bring trouble." He met her gaze. "Leaving you out there would bring worse." He worked until the bleeding slowed, his hands steady despite the weight pressing on his chest. When he was done, she closed her eyes, exhaustion finally pulling her under. Coulter sat back, listening to the fire crackle, to the wind rattling the walls. Only then did he notice the marks on her wrist, faint but unmistakable, and the way she flinched when a sound came too close to the door. Outside, hoofbeats echoed faint and distant, then faded. Coulter rose and went to the window, peering into the dark. The land beyond his fence lay quiet, but the quiet felt thin, stretched. He thought of the blood on the trail that did not match a deer, of the fear in Ayana's eyes, of the warning in her voice. When he turned back, she was awake, watching him again. "They will look for me," she said softly. Coulter stood between her and the door without thinking, the firelight throwing his shadow long across the floor. "Then they will have to come through me." Ayana's eyes searched his face, as if trying to decide whether that promise was a comfort or a danger. Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it the sense that the holiday hunt had led him into something far larger than a single wounded soul. The fire popped, a sharp sound in the stillness, and Coulter knew that whatever was coming would not wait for morning. The night settled heavy around the ranch, pressing against the walls like a living thing. Coulter fed another split log into the fire and listened to it catch. Outside, the wind slid through the sage and mesquite, carrying scents of dust and cold stone. It was the kind of night that made memories rise whether a man wanted them or not. Coulter had learned long ago to sit with such nights instead of fighting them. Ayana shifted on the bed, her breath uneven. He stayed where he was, giving her space, though every part of him wanted to make sure she was still breathing. When she opened her eyes, they flicked first to the door, then to him. Only after that did some of the tightness leave her shoulders. "You keep watch like a soldier," she said. Coulter shrugged. "Ranch teaches you that. So does losing things you thought were safe." She studied his face again. "This land was not always quiet." "No," he said. "Still is not, if you listen." Silence stretched between them, filled by the crackle of firewood. Finally, she spoke again, slower now. "I was headed south. To family. I did not mean to cross your path. I was not meant to cross yours either," Coulter said.
"Ow.
"But here we are." She pressed her hand lightly against the bandage, testing. Pain flickered across her face, but she did not cry out. That told him more about her than any story could. "There are men," she said. "They do not belong to the land. They take what they want and call it trade." Coulter's jaw tightened. He had seen those kinds of men drift through towns like smoke, leaving nothing solid behind. "Were they the ones who hurt you?" Her eyes slid away. I followed first. Words came later. The knife was last. Coulter stood and moved to the window again, scanning the dark. The fence line was quiet, the gate closed. Still he felt watched. He said, "They will look for you." "Yes, how many?" "Enough." That was not an answer that brought comfort. Coulter rubbed his neck, feeling the old ache there. "My ranch sits between roads. People pass through, but not many stop. They come asking questions. I can send them on." Ayana shook her head. "They are not men who ask." A knock came then, sharp and sudden. Coulter froze. The sound echoed in the small room, loud as a gunshot. Ayana's breath caught, and her hand clenched the blanket. Coulter held up a calming hand and crossed to the door, moving with care. He did not open it at once. "Who is there?" he called. "Just me," came the reply, a familiar voice roughened by cold. Jonah Pike. Relief loosened something in Coulter's chest. Jonah was his nearest neighbor, a man built like a fence post with a voice to match. Coulter opened the door enough to see him standing there, hat pulled low, eyes sharp. "You look like you saw a ghost," Jonah said. "Come inside," Coulter replied.
Out.
"And keep your voice down." Jonah stepped in, stamping snow from his boots. His gaze flicked to the bed and then back to Coulter, questions lining his face. "You finally bring company home and forget to tell me." "Not like that," Coulter said. "She is hurt." Jonah's humor faded. He nodded once. "Riders passed my place before dark. Asked if I had seen a girl. Said she stole from them." Coulter felt the fire inside him flare. "And you told them?" "I told them I had not seen a soul all day," Jonah said. They did not believe me. Ayana had gone very still. Coulter could feel her fear from across the room. They said where they were headed, Coulter asked. North, Jonah replied. But men like that circle back. Coulter thanked him and walked him to the door. Jonah paused on the threshold. You sure you want to take this on? He asked quietly. Coulter met his eyes. I already have. After Jonah left, Coulter bolted the door and returned to the fire. Ayanna watched him, her expression unreadable. You risk much for someone you do not know, she said. Coulter sat on the chair beside the bed. I know enough. I know you are bleeding. I know the cold would have taken you. And I know men who hunt people do not stop on their own. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. My people taught me to read faces. Yours carries loss. Coulter did not answer right away. The fire popped again, sparks lifting and dying. My wife passed 2 winters ago, he said at last. Fever took her. The house has been quiet since. I am sorry, Ayanna said. So am I, Coulter replied. But that is the way of things. Sleep came to her in fits, broken by pain and dreams. Each time she stirred, Coulter was there with water or a word. The night dragged on, long and uneasy. More than once he thought he heard movement outside, but when he checked, there was only wind and shadow. Near dawn, Ayanna spoke again, her voice softer now. They want something I carry. Coulter leaned closer. What is it? She hesitated. Not gold, not land. Something they think gives power. Coulter frowned. People chase strange ideas. They do, she said. They hurt others to reach them. The first light crept through the window, pale and weak. Coulter watched it touch her face, saw the strength there despite everything. He felt the weight of the coming day settle on him like a mantle. Somewhere beyond the ranch, men were moving, planning. He did not know how far they would go or what they were willing to do. Ayanna reached for his sleeve, her grip firm despite the pain. If they come, she said, remember what I told you? Coulter nodded. Out. Go slow. She gave the faintest smile. Aside a horse whinnied in the distance, carried on the cold morning air. Coulter rose, heart pounding, knowing the quiet was thinning again, and whatever waited beyond it was drawing closer. Morning did not bring peace. It brought clarity, and clarity had sharp edges. Coulter stepped outside just after sunrise, the frost crunching under his boots. The land looked calm, almost gentle, but he knew better than to trust it. He walked the fence line, eyes low, reading the ground the way his father taught him. Hoofprints pressed fresh into the soil near the creek. Not deer, horses, more than one. He followed the marks only far enough to know they were real, then turned back. Whatever was coming did not need him chasing shadows. It needed him ready. Inside, Ayanna was awake, propped slightly on one elbow. The color had not returned to her face, but her eyes were alert, listening even when nothing sounded. She had the stillness of someone who learned early that noise could cost you. They circled, Coulter said quietly. Not close yet. She nodded once. They test places before they strike. Coulter poured water and handed it to her. She drank slow, careful not to jar the wound. You said they want something you carry, he said. Is it with you now? Her fingers tightened around the cup. Yes. What is it? A memory, she replied. And a mark. That answer left more questions than it solved, but Coulter did not push. He had learned that truth came easier when it was not forced. Said about his chores inside the house, keeping his movements steady so she could rest. Still, his ears stayed tuned to every sound outside, every shift of wind. Later, when the sun climbed higher, she spoke again. My grandfather was a singer, she said. He carried old stories. Some men believe those stories can lead to hidden places. They believe blood opens paths, words cannot. Coulter felt his stomach knot. They think you know where something is. Yes, she said. I do not. But belief can be stronger than truth. He thought of the men Jonah described, the way they asked questions without patience. If they do not find what they want, he said, they will keep pushing. They always do. The day stretched on, slow and tense. Jonah returned near midday, bringing bread and a warning. 2 riders watching the road, he said. Another pair near the ravine. They are spreading out. Coulter thanked him and closed the door again, setting the bar across it. The ranch had never felt small before. Now every wall seemed thin. As the light faded, Ayanna asked to stand. Coulter helped her, one arm steady around her back. She winced, but did not falter. "I need to move," she said. Stillness invites fear. They stood by the window together, watching the sky turn gold, then red. Smoke rose from a distant campfire, thin as a finger pointing toward them. Coulter saw it too. "You're close," he said. "Yes." She turned to him, her gaze firm. "You could send me away. Say I passed through. It would be easier for you." Coulter shook his head. Easier does not mean right. A sound came then, faint but clear. Horse snorting, too near to be chance. Coulter guided Ayanna back to the bed and reached for his rifle. His heart beat hard, but his hands stayed calm. A knock followed, slower this time, almost polite. A voice called out, smooth as oil. "Evening." "We are looking for someone." Coulter did not answer right away. Stepped into the doorway enough to block the view inside. "You found a ranch," he said. "That is all." The man outside smiled, though his eyes did not. "We were told a girl came this way, hurt. We want to help her." Coulter held his ground. "No one here but me." The smile faded. "That is a shame." Behind him, Coulter heard Ayanna shift, heard her breath steady. He knew this moment would decide much. The man outside leaned closer, his shadow stretching across the floor.
"We will be back,"
the man said softly. "And next time, we will not knock." Coulter watched them ride away, their figures swallowed by dusk. He closed the door and locked it, the sound final and heavy. Inside, the fire burned low. Ayanna spoke from the bed, her voice calm despite everything. "Now you see." Coulter nodded. "I do." Outside, the night gathered itself again, thick with waiting. Night came down hard after they rode off, the kind of dark that pressed close and made every sound feel louder than it was. Coulter banked the fire low and moved through the house with quiet purpose. He checked the back door, the windows, the latch on the cellar. Each small task steadied him, gave his hands something honest to do, while his thoughts ran ahead to what might come. Ayanna lay still, listening. When he returned to her side, she was awake, her eyes following the line of his shoulders, the set of his jaw. "They will not leave," she said. It was not fear in her voice, just certainty. "They will wait for hunger or doubt." Coulter poured a cup of water and held it for her. "They picked the wrong place," he said. "This land has teeth." She drank and rested back against the pillow. The firelight caught the curve of her cheek, the tired strength there. "You could still send word to the marshal," she said. "I could," Coulter replied. "But help moves slow this time of year. Snow could fall by morning. Roads close. Men like them know that." She nodded. "Then we prepare." They spoke little after that. Words felt heavy, like they might carry beyond the walls. Coulter sat with his rifle across his knees, listening to the ranch breathe. Wind scraped along the boards. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried, then went silent. Near midnight, the horses stamped outside. Coulter stiffened. He rose and eased to the window, careful not to show himself against the light. Shapes moved near the corral, shadows breaking and reforming. He counted at least 3, maybe more. Ayanna's voice came low behind him. "They test your resolve." Coulter slipped back to her. "If they rush the house, I can hold them at the door. The cellar hatch gives cover, and after," she asked, "after we see if dawn comes." Time stretched thin. A rock struck the wall, a dull thud meant to stir fear, then another, closer to the window. Coulter did not answer. He let the quiet sit, heavy and unwelcoming. A figure stepped into the moonlight, hands raised, palms out. The smooth voice carried again. "You are a stubborn man, rancher. This does not need to end badly." Coulter stayed silent. His heart beat hard, but his mind was clear. He had learned that some men mistook talk for weakness. He would not give them that. The man outside sighed. "We will take what we came for," he said. "With you standing or not." Ayanna reached for Coulter's sleeve. "They want me alive," she whispered. "For now, that gives us time," Coulter said. The men withdrew again, melting back into the dark. Coulter waited long after the last sound faded. When he finally sat, his legs shook. He did not hide it. "You are not afraid," Ayanna said softly. "I am," Coulter replied. "I just learned to work through it." She closed her eyes, breath slow. "So did I." Before dawn, the wind shifted. Snow began to fall, light at first, then thicker. Coulter smiled grimly. The land was choosing sides. He pulled on his coat and stepped out to move the horses into shelter. The cold bit hard, but it felt clean. When he returned, his beard crusted white, Ayanna watched him with something like awe. "You belong to this place," she said. "It raised me," he answered. "It will see this through." As the sky lightened, shots cracked from the ridge, sharp and echoing. Bullets struck the fence posts, sending splinters flying. Coulter ducked low, heart hammering. He returned fire only once, a warning shot into the dirt near their feet. Ayanna cried out as pain flared. Coulter rushed to her, hands gentle. "Stay with me," he said. "I am," she replied, teeth clenched. "I am not done yet." Smoke drifted from the ridge. The men were moving closer now, using the terrain, patient as wolves. Coulter felt the walls closing in, checked his ammunition, counted each breath. Ayanna reached under the blanket and drew out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "This is what they believe in," she said. "A song carved into bone. They think it points the way." Coulter looked at it, then back at her. "Does it? It points to who you are," she said. "That is enough for some men." The shooting stopped. Silence fell again, thicker than before. Footsteps crunched in the snow, slow and deliberate. The smooth-voiced man called out once more, "Last chance!" Coulter moved to the door, placing himself squarely between the sound and the woman behind him. His shadow stretched long across the floor. He felt the weight of every choice that led here, every mile walked alone since his wife passed, every quiet night he thought meant safety. Ayanna's voice rose behind him, steady despite the pain. "Whatever happens," she said, "go slow." The latch rattled. Wood groaned under pressure. Coulter tightened his grip, breath held, the moment stretching until it felt like the world itself had paused. Outside, the wind howled, snow whipping hard, and somewhere in that storm, the answer waited just beyond the door. The door shuddered once more, then went still. Coulter held his breath, counting the seconds the way his father taught him when storms closed in and panic did no good. The wind howled hard enough to blur sound and sight alike, and the snow came sideways now, thick and stinging. Outside, voices rose, sharp with frustration, then fell again. Men argued when plans failed. Coulter knew that tone. Ayanna's hand found his arm. It was warm, steady. "They are losing patience," she said. "So am I," Coulter replied. Another sound cut through the storm, deeper and heavier than the wind. A distant shout answered it, then another. Horses whinnied, startled. The men at the door stepped back, boots crunching fast. Coulter moved to the window and peered out. Lantern light bobbed near the ridge, then swung wide as figures turned in a hurry. A shot cracked, not from the ranch, not from the ridge, but from the road. A voice carried over the storm, loud and commanding. "Drop it and step away." Relief hit Coulter so hard he had to steady himself. Jonah Pike's voice followed, joined by others. The marshal had come after all, pulled in by weather and chance, and a neighbor who knew when to ride hard. The men outside cursed and scattered, some trying for their horses, others slipping into the white dark. More shots rang out, measured and controlled. It did not last long. When the noise finally faded, the wind took over again, as if nothing had happened. Coulter opened the door. Cold rushed in, sharp and clean. Jonah stood there with snow caked in his beard, eyes bright. Behind him, the marshal and 2 deputies held lanterns and rifles, their faces set and certain. "We followed their tracks back," Jonah said. "They did not run far in this weather." Coulter nodded once, the knot in his chest finally loosening. "Thank you." The marshal stepped forward. "We will take it from here," he said. "You did right, Rains." Inside, Ayanna exhaled a long breath she had been holding for days. The fight drained out of her all at once. Coulter was at her side in a heartbeat, easing her back against the pillows. "It is over," he said. "For them," she replied. "For now." The days that followed moved slower, gentler. Snow fell steady, sealing the land in quiet. The men who came hunting left in chains, their talk empty of power once the law stood before them. Questions were asked and answered, enough to make the danger pass. The bone-carved song was taken, recorded, and returned, its meaning losing its edge when exposed to daylight. Ayanna healed with patience and stubborn strength. Coulter changed her bandages each morning, careful and sure. They spoke of small things at first, then larger ones. She told him of her people, of songs carried through generations not to lead to treasure, but to remind hearts where they belonged. He told her of the ranch of winters learned the hard way, of a love that ended too soon but left warmth behind. When the snow broke and the road opened, the marshal came once more. "You are safe now," he told Ayanna. "You can travel when you are ready." She looked to the window, to the land stretching wide and honest. Then she looked at Coulter. "I am ready," she said, "but not to leave." Coulter felt the words settle into him, deep and steady. He did not rush them. "Stay," he said simply. Spring came soft that year. Grass pushed green through the melt. Deer returned to the creek unafraid. Ayanna walked the land with Coulter, slow at first, then stronger. She learned the fences and fields. He learned her laughter, quiet and rare, worth waiting for. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she stopped by the cottonwoods where he had first found her trail. She touched the bark, eyes thoughtful. "This place brought us together," she said, "not by accident." Coulter took her hand. "The land gives what it chooses." They stood there as light faded, the ranch behind them warm with promise. The past did not vanish, but it loosened its hold. In its place grew something steadier, built on patience, on moving slow when it mattered most. When the holidays came again, the fire burned bright, and the house no longer felt empty. Outside, snow fell gentle this time, and inside, two lives moved forward together, guided not by fear or pursuit, but by the quiet strength of choosing to stay.